Hi everybody, it's Kathy here from Kathy Loves to Scrap with another video. Today I made this page with my daughter and her boyfriend. I have permission to use their photo, and it was made for the Craft IQ challenge for May. Had to have a half and half design, something had to be torn, added some stamping, created a tag from pattern paper with no pre-made tags, added some brads, made sure I had purple, and I had to create dimension. There was also an extra bit where I had to stamp a border and make sure that the photos were on at least 3 or 4 layers. So these are the papers I've chosen. They are from the Uniquely Creative collection, and I love this colour collection here, and it complements the photo so well. As always, I start with my borders, as you know, and I cut out my centre of my pages. That way I get to maximise the use of the paper and also to build layers without actually having to waste so much paper. And they are so pretty that it's a shame that you waste paper. So I'm cutting out here a border, which is an inner border. It's 3/4 in from the edge, and I've cut out the main square, which I'll keep for later usage. From that border, I'm then going to use Victorian Velvet from Tim Holtz to distress the edges to define it. This is giving it a purple shade. Even though the Victorian Velvet is a bit of a pink colour, it adds a purple shade to it. The papers have purple in them, so that makes my criteria for make purple important. Now, as I do with everything, I use my double-sided tape and I use it to edge around the frame, and it allows me to secure it to the purple frame which I'd already previously cut. Now I'm going to cut in the inner one again. So once again, I'm maximising the use of my cardstock. And I do apologise for my animals going mental in the background. That's my little puppy. She doesn't like being left alone. And bird Jack in the background is screeching. So I apologise for all the extra background noise today. So I'm edging it with the Victorian Velvet and I'm distressing it. I'm taping it together so that I now have another inner frame. Now this is going to be the frame for my stamping, and this is where I will create my stamping border. Double-sided tape once again, making sure that it's secure, and I've now got the base of my project. So using the Tim Holtz stamp platform, I'm going to build a border with the stamps, and I'm going to actually emboss them. I have a leaf stamp which is similar to the leaves in the paper. I have this wheel type of thing which looks like the lemon slices from the paper, and you can see how I tried to make the pattern come together. And there's a little lemon slice in there, and on the other piece of paper that I'll be using, there's this lemon slice here. So I'm using that stamp to create this, and then I have a floral stamp which is very similar to the purple flowers on this piece of paper, and so I'm using that to recreate the paper through the stamping to create my border. So I've placed it in using my magnets to hold it in place. My first one I'm going to do with black for you so that you can see where I've stamped it, and then I'm going to distress over the top using the dauber. So here's my first one so that you can see I have put that in, and that's where my leaf is going to sit. Alright, so the rest of them I haven't used the black, but for this one I have to show you what I'm doing. I'm using the distressed dauber of Tim Holtz, and I use that to make it nice and sticky so that when I put on my embossing powder it all sticks cleanly to the page. And I'm just going to stamp, and that's the best thing about these platforms. You just get that perfect re-imaging no matter how many times you stamp. Take off my magnets here, and I'm going to use a gold embossing powder, and I'm going to get my little bowl that I always use, and I'm going to sprinkle it over the top. And this is important that you get an even coverage, so always put it there. I'd give it a gentle tap to make sure it comes off. Pat off any extra embossing powder because we don't want spots and dots when we start to use the heating tool. Now I have a Fiskars heating tool which I use, And when you use the tool over it, you can see the embossing powder change from dry to a liquid and then dry with the gold. So I'm just going to emboss this quickly for you. And I have now got a gold leaf. So now I'm just going to build my border, and I'm doing exactly the same process, distressing, covering with the golden thing, using the heat gun to emboss. And I'm turned now to the other corner, and I'm redoing that process so that I can build my border, adding my gold embossing powder and then heat embossing. Alright, so now I'm going to add in my flower, but this one I'm just using the sort of a rosette flower, heat emboss, put it in the centre of the leaves. Originally when I had my sketch, and you'll see my sketch throughout the rest here, I was going to have the leaves through the middle, but when I put the borders all together, it was a small space. Now in the corners here, I'm just going to use the two together to create a border, heat emboss that, turns it to the liquid gold, and I'm going to add a third one there just to round off because it makes it more pleasing to the eyes. I've put that in and I've repeated that process for the next corner so that I heat emboss it, and I'm sure that there are people who are stampers that are much faster than I am at doing that. Alright, now I'm going to move into the centre of my project where I'm going to go my half and half design. So I'm cutting in my frame, which is 7 3/4 by 7 3/4. I'm going to put that into here for you, and you'll be able to see that I have got the embossing happening right across. I've torn one of these to put in my torn element. So halfway across my design, there's one, and there's the second part, and that one has the torn edge across the center. So now I have my half and half design in the middle. I'm putting it on a slant to just add a little bit of interest. So if I count it roughly, I've got 4, but if I count it exactly, there's 6 layers there. And part of the challenge was to have enough layers behind the picture, at least 3. I've got 6, so I think I've met that criteria. Using my tape again, I'm going to put that all down, and I'm leaving the edges free. The reason I'm leaving the edges free is because I'm going to use tags and build my tags into that part. Using a card, a daily life card, I'm using the quote off it that says, it doesn't matter where you're going, it's who you have beside you. So I'm now going to mount the photo, which I know is a 6x4, so I'm measuring it at 6 and just under 6 1/4 and just under 4 1/4, so that it gives a little bit of a pop around the edge of the photo. Put that down onto there, and you can see that I now have an even little space around my photo. I'm going to put that together and place that here. Just tidy up those little cuts there. Sometimes the blade doesn't cut as cleanly as I'd like it, and that's because I'm in a bit of a hurry. Alright, so tape this down again. Once again, this is acid free, so therefore I know it's not going to eat into my photos. I like just double-sided tape, but you use whatever adhesive you like. Take it on and off, and I'm going to frame it. I will put down the bottom all of the tools that I have used, such as the Tim Holtz stamping platform, my Fiskus cutter and heating tool. So I'm putting in my photo here for you, and it's going to be the focal point of my page. But I want it to get dimension. Remember, I had to have dimension on my page, so I'm going to pop this photo using pop tape, and I just get this from my $2 bargain shops. Just buy it, rolls, it does the job, and it's thin, and I like it for when I need to build dimension on my projects. So peel that off, which can be a bit tricky at times, and then put it together. Now finding the right place, and I never really push them down too hard, because I often find that I lift and replace, so by not doing it too hard. Now I'm contemplating framing this one here to give it a pop, but I didn't actually leave enough in that size. But let's have a look and see what this looks like. I'm not too sure that I like it. Now I think it undercuts the framing here, so I'm going to take that out. I'm just going to leave that by itself. So I'm going to lift the photo here because that's where it's going to fit in, and I want the corner of the photo to fit exactly into the corner of the quote, just like that. So that's going to look pretty good. Yep, I'm happy with that. Alright, so just shuffle it around. I'm going to do the same again with the Victorian Velvet. Just dress the edges just so it lifts it off the page a little bit and it's not so flat. It adds a little shading and it does all of that in there. So let's make sure that that works nicely. Alright, so I'm going to put that all together and pop that in. Pop tape again, put it in, and now I have got my quote in on the page. And I just like it to be so sometimes I'll fiddle around and make sure I get it in. Right, so there we have the quote in place. Now I'm going to have to build my tags and banners. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to build some banners from a design that I thought I would use. So I'm going to use the scraps of the paper that I've cut out already, because waste not, want not. And I create my own little banner tag things that I put into my pages myself. And I'm just cutting them down now, as you can see. Looking at the paper, which is the best way to put it so that it stands out, makes it blends. I don't want them that thick, so I'm going to cut them down further with my scissors, and because it's gridded, it's great because I can actually see what I want. I'll just measure it roughly. It doesn't have to be exact. Some people like their work exact. I get it as close as I can, and I'm just going to cut it there. So now I'm going to cut in the bottom triangles to make the tag banners. And you can see everything is free-handed, nothing is really measured. I should really call myself Kathy is lapsadaisical when it comes to scrapping, but I do like it and it creates the thing. Now that's not right through, so I'll just cut it through a little bit more. And now that I have those two banners, I can now have a look at how they fit into the page. Pop them off again with that Victorian Velvet Distress ink. That just adds it in, gives it some dimension, and then I'm going to place it in. Now I'm going to use a strip from the original paper because that will bring the border into the page. Cut in those two little banners, ink them up, and now I can put them into the page, and that's another dimension in my page. So as you can see, the page is slowly coming together. The design is just putting it in. I'm using lots of different flames. I used all of the colours of the paper that I had. I have put that in. Now I need to add in my that little bit sticking up there, so I'll stick that down, make sure that that's down firm. And this is why I like double-sided tape. It allows me to manipulate what I'm working with, but then adjust quickly to fix it. Alright, so my next thing that I need to add in are my tags, but I'm going to trim here. Just make sure it's not off the edge of the paper. And being with the purple, it just blends, which works perfectly. And now it's all even. I'm going to sort through the colours of the papers that I have left because I want it to be complementary for my tags to the sides. So that's my homemade tags that I needed to make for part of the challenge. And I do these by looking at the colours. No, the yellow is not quite right. It's a totally different colour to the page. This one here is better, yeah, but I don't like the spots on it. I'm going to think about it. Probably go back to the original one. Now, I'm going to cut it so that I've got the best design part on the tag. Then I'm going to place it there, you see, so it's going to stick out at the edge. Alright, now I'm making my own tags here, so I do it by eye again. And I'm just going to cut a little bit off the corner there, and another piece here, and then I'm going to eyeball it. No, it's just not right, so I'm just going to angle a little bit more. And now I have my tag. There, that's perfect. So if I ink the edge of it, that will make it stand out off the paper. So putting that all together now. And then you can see, waste not, want not again, cut it in half because it is going to go in behind. So it doesn't need to be the full tag length there. So that's one tag in there. I'm going to repeat the process again with that other piece for the other side. I'm going to cut the tag into the tag shape. So cut off one triangle on which side, because I want to maximise the paper colour. Yep. And yeah, get rid of all that white space. Pop it a little bit with my distressing ink. Put it in and slide it into that space there. So now I've got 2 of my tags done. And just putting the place in. Remember, I don't put them in and glue them in until I'm happy with my placement. Alright, so now I'm going to use the purple because I really want to put the purple and make these ones pop. And so I'm going to cut these ones down to about 1 3/4. And then I'm going to, once again, eyeball my own little tag. And this is a little trick that I do. I use the guide on my slide to help me sometimes to do this part. So I've got one done. Now I'm going to do the same again. Cut in my tag. Now, if you're liking my video, put a little like at the end. That'd be great. I'd appreciate that. Hopefully you're learning something, or hopefully I'm sharing something that you thought, oh, that's a good idea. Now, I've got my 2 tags made. They're going to be my 2 other little tags. And so I'm going to use these little scraps that I have left to build the front of them, because I want these tags to be like mounted tags. That adds to the dimension side of it. I'm just going to trim it down a little bit to make sure it fits in. And what I do is I then use the tag as a guide to get the shape so that when I put it on, it just fits in. Cut off those edges there. See, very, very not accurate in what I do. I overcome and accommodate. It's just a little bit easier. I'm choosing papers from pieces that I have around. This one here is actually left of that Project Life card. Build that again. Now, edged all of those, and I'm going to tape it all together. And the other part that I thought when I was doing it is that the torn part is sort of hidden. So I'm going to tear to make it again. Tear some strips more onto these ones and add them in, because that's going to add to that torn factor and also give me that element that I needed for this project. Alright, so there's my tags. Next I'm going to use my awl, and I'm going to put a hole in them, and the reason I'm putting the hole in my tags is because they're not tags yet. They don't look like fully comprised tags. I'm going to add my brads, which were a part that I needed to have in the IQ challenge. So putting in some purple brads. As you can see, I've got purple, I've got my half and half, I've got my torn papers, I've got dimension, I've got stamping. So I've put it all together and I've built up my page. Add that in there. Putting these little brads, which I have in a little tray to the side so I don't lose them. Put them together. I always go and get my bits and bobs and put them in a little tray that I'm going to work with. Make sure they're nice and flat. And so now, there's the last one. I'm just going to put it in here for you. And that should go from there. Perfect. Right. Place them in how I want them to look. And as you can see, they're starting to pop the page. It's not so flat. Alright, I'm now going to just take them all up and put it all together. And I will go through this pretty quickly because there's nothing worse than me. I'm putting the dimension here as well because I'm making the top part of the tag stand up. So the bottom part will be flat, the top part will be popped so that it gives that dimension to the page. Just adding a bit of pop tape that makes it all stand up at the edges. And I'm now going to just put it, these pop tapes are a bit stickier, paste it together. And before I put it in behind the photo, I'm going to place the tag how I want it to look. So it gives that look, and then it's one in, move it to where I want it to be, and then I'm going to put it down. And I'm happy with that. That looks good. Okay. And I'm going to repeat that process on the other side. So now I've got dimension behind those tags. I'll put these two in here, the same. So I'm going to tape them up as well using my tape and the pop tape. As you can see, my page now has multiple layers. I've got the torn, I've got the stamping, I stamped a border as the twist. I've got multiple layers under my photo so that it meets that part of the twist. I have included purple, which is another element, and I've included brads. So my page is now looking quite, it's looking a little bit flat at the moment. I like it, but it still needs some work. I think it's a little bit flat. And so what I'll do is I'll go through all of my little bits and bobs that I have collected in my tray, and I will build elements. I'd also add a title and some wording. I'm going to slide that in, and that now has added the tag component for the challenge with my brads. And I'm not covering too much of my stamps. Oh, there she goes again. Little girl popping away. She doesn't like being left alone. Alright, so there's my page so far. So I've now built on with my little bit of elements. I've added a little key that says I love you, some flowers, some flower stamens, and you can see that I've built up the top of the tag. I've layered it, it's got dimension, we have that quote happening. Here's my title, happiness, with some more flowers to give it dimension and the stamens. Up the top I've added in some stickers to build on those banners at the top. I've got the purple flowers and it makes it stand out. And overall you put the page together and it's come together nicely. So thanks for looking. If you like, leave a like and I'll share the next time. See ya.